Hello everyone, this is the Mobula 7 from Happy Model. It features a 2S single board flight stack, F3 with an OSD, 5 amp 4-in-1 ESC with a 6 amp peak, featuring BB2 on the ESCs. It also has a current meter. The board comes with its own receiver, in my case it's an FR Sky. You can also get Fly Sky and DSM. The motors are 802 16,000 kV. The props are 40 millimeters. The description says 3-bladed, 700 TV line camera with a 25 milliwatt VTX. You have this 3D printed piece to hold your batteries in. Comes with 2 PH2 connectors. Inside the canopy is a micro buzzer. It weighs 28.5 grams. With batteries, it weighs 41.5 grams. You also get 250 milliamp batteries. Depends on which package you buy, how many you get. You can also get a charger. It does come with extra props, an extra 3D printed piece for your batteries, a screwdriver, and a prop remover, along with a few extra screws, and a one-page setup guide. Because we've seen some flight footage already, I want to cover a couple of things. One, when they set up the board, they got the minimum and warning cell voltage backwards. They have it at default, as you see on screen, 3.3 and 2.9. That should be reversed. In my particular case, I actually change mine based upon what I find with the batteries. So typically during my first day of flight, I'll go for a fly, I'll get my batteries in, I'll check them, and see where I need to land. Maybe I can adjust that power up or down, and this is not only on single cell batteries, but on multi-cell batteries as well. I want my batteries to be unloaded test at 3.5 or really close to 3.5. Now you may feel differently, and that's okay. You may want them to come in at 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 per cell. That's up to you. I'm just disclosing what I look for. You see on screen, I have the minimum cell voltage at 2.9 and the warning cell at 3.1, and you might be looking at that going, well, that's too low to come in at 3.5. Now, when I get done flying, I plug them into usually something like this. I have a couple of them around. This one happens to be from Beta FPV. I also have one from King Kong, and I think I bought another one from Tiny Whoop, but I couldn't find it tonight. So you plug it into this little checker, and it gives you a voltage and it tells you what it displays. I go by that. I haven't found that doing what I do has damaged cells at an accelerated rate. I have seen some of my cells get puffy, and I have had to dispose of them, but not that many. And in all the 1S batteries I had, I think I've actually tossed out 5, and I've probably got about 60 still. Some of them don't work as well as others, but some of them never worked as well as others. So it's going to vary. I think what I should start with is the durability. Now, you may have noticed in that flight footage that it was pretty fast. When I was satisfied with the amount of flying I had done, I started reviewing my footage. And when I was looking at it, I kind of thought, am I flying angry or am I just having that much fun? Because it did seem like I was flying really aggressively. And I did break the frame in a number of different spots. I switched out the frame not because of all the breakages, but because, you know, you have to take pictures for thumbnails, and I wanted to use a good frame. This is the B-Whoop frame. It's I think the B-Whoop 75. I think you can also get this in different colors. I think blue and yellow. There might be one other color. I'll find those if I can, and I'll link them down below in case you want to swap them out. But I did break this frame all over the place. You see this one. This one I actually repaired, but I didn't do a very good job, and then it broke again. We have a breakage there. We've got 2 breakages out there. I was doing things just kind of practicing. I was trying to do a power loop underneath that table. Being we don't have any furniture, and I got that one like picnic table thing out there, I was trying to power loop that. I don't quite have the finesse down. I have gotten to the point where I'll kind of bottom out, which it doesn't look very good, so it didn't make any of the video. You may be very, very familiar with this frame. Some of you may be swapping out your components of your Snapper 6 or Snapper 7 into this frame because it is the same. It is identical. The canopy, I think, is really well done. I'm a big advocate of having an adjustable canopy because I think camera angle is one way that we can adjust quite simply our speed. So regardless of whether you're an advanced pilot and you want to fly fast and you're in races, and so you want to crank this sucker up as much as you can, or if you're just getting started and you want to do some indoor cruising, you can go ahead and, well, if I can get my fingers to work here, you can go to almost 0 so that you can just ease into your flying. So this canopy is really well designed. I actually think this canopy is better designed than it is on the UR65 and the US 65 and the UK 65 and the Snapper series. You know how they have this canopy. It's lower profile, which I appreciate. And also in the picture that I can show you here, you'll notice that it's secured in there better. And I think they did a really nice job of securing that camera inside. You might be able to see that little bracket at the backside. I tried really hard to take good pictures because I knew there'd be a lot of people interested in every little detail. And I was fortunate enough to get this early directly from the manufacturer. So I did try my best to take pictures, but I don't have a really highfalutin studio here. I'm just a guy who likes to fly and I make videos. But I do have an appreciation for how they designed the canopy and how they secured the camera in there. You do have smart audio. I didn't mention that in the quick roll. It's almost becoming standard, isn't it? And smart audio gives you the ability to change your channels and also your power, but in this case you can't change the milliwatts that your VTX is running at because it is only 25 milliwatts, but you can change your band and your channel that you're flying. So if you do go to a local race and you find that you're on the same channel as a buddy, one of you can switch quite easily just using your thumbsticks on the OSD. And I do get a lot of questions about how to do that. So to get into your OSD, you go left stick, this is in mode 2, you go left stick mid, full left, right stick, center, full forward. That gets you into the OSD, and then you go into the features, and then I think you go into TR. So that's where you get into changing your bands and your channels and your power, but again, this one does not adjust the power. Here's a little picture of the buzzer, and I did find it quite loud. And also something else that I was really surprised about was the fact that this thing, when you put it in crash mode or flip over after crash, it will do a flip sometimes. Something else I noticed is that it doesn't land upside down all that much. And I suspect that's to do with the low profile, that we don't have a lot of bulk vertically, so it would tend to find a flat spot, and that flat spot tended to be the batteries at the bottom. And probably because of this only weighs a gram. I think it's on my scale, it's actually 1.08 grams. So you're not going to save a whole lot of weight by going to a different material than this. You can see my props are beat up. Hopefully you can see all those stress marks. I did bend them back from time to time. I've got some tips that still aren't in very good shape, and I just flew it because I wanted to fly it like you might fly it. I didn't want to be gentle with it. I didn't want to try to take all those extra components that they sent me and put them in here to make it pristine. I wanted to fly it. You know, when I broke this frame, I continued to fly it. Even this one. I don't know how long that particular day this frame was broken in both spots, and I just continued to fly it. Now, some people are against plastic frames, and if that's the case, I suspect you've already left because it is a plastic frame. Me, myself, I don't have a problem with it, and I think the proof is a little bit in the pudding. You saw the flight footage. Is there anything wrong with how these plastic framed whoops fly? In my opinion, the answer is no. Another question that's likely going to come up is you might be able to see my tape down there. And I actually didn't notice this initially when I got it and started flying it, but my video wire was actually underneath, and with all the impacts, it kept hitting that wire and kept coming down. It may have been protecting a short as well, but when I took it apart, I noticed that that wire that you're looking at was frayed a little bit, so I desoldered it, and then I put some heat shrink over that. And then when I put it back together for the beauty shots of the thumbnail, I made sure that I put all my wires over here to the side. Let's take a closer look at the components here that they sent. Some of you may know what each and all these components are, and I hope to give you a very good look at what they are and hold my hand nice and still so you can maybe read as much as you can or zoom in. If you have questions about these, let me know. I've got a host of pictures that I've taken of this thing, and I'll put them in a folder and I'll share them via Google Photos, and a link down in the description so you can take another look. You see that it's black, and in the Snapper and the UR series, they're red. You can see the screen printing right there. It says Crazy Bee F3 Pro. Of course, some people will say, well, it's an F3. I wish it was F4. Yeah, I'm aware with you, but it flies really well, so I really can't complain. And a little look at the back side here with all those little components. Some of you may know what they changed. That is not a burn mark. I haven't even actually used this board. This is a brand new pristine board. Some of you might know what they changed to make this board 2S compatible. I don't, but maybe you can identify it here. I'm sure somebody will take a screenshot online and then circle the components that they found that were changed from the original 1S version to the 2S version. Your bind button, maybe the single most important button on this little thing, is actually right here. So how you bind, and the instructions tell you this, so I'm not telling you any sort of secrets. So how you bind is you plug in power, you press this button for 2 seconds. The lights go from, I think it's flashing to solid, so it's ready to bind. Or no, it goes from solid to flashing. It's ready to bind. You hit the binding on your remote. You can do D8 and D16. The manual or the instruction sheet also tells you about which to select for that. Depends on the protocol. It's for yours. I don't know why there's two different. I bound in D16 mode and it worked just fine. Mine in the configuration shows the FrSky X protocol in beta flight. So per the instructions, I bound in D16 mode, so having all 16 channels to me. So after pressing that button and the lights going to the flashing state, then you bind, and then it should go solid and you're all set to go. Some people also tend to change these out to run a thicker gauge wire and or a thicker gauge wire that connects to an XT30. That's a choice you can make if you choose to. I think there's a lot of modders out there that are going to fully do that, and they'll probably also mod the battery bay to where the battery maybe just goes in here, or they use some sort of strap. So this is just kind of a base for those people who are going to do mods in order to improve it and make it the way they want. I do think one thing that I would like to see in all these frames now that include a receiver is that there's some mechanism on one of these hoops to secure the antenna. We can glue these down. You can use some welder glue like this. The nice thing about this stuff is that it stays flexible and it adheres pretty good. I use it for hoop repairs for the most part. It also takes a long time to set up. To fully cure, I think it takes 12 hours. So oftentimes what I would do is I would wreck it all up during the day, and then I'd fix it at night, and then I'd fly it again during the day, and then round and round you go. You can also use other glues like this. There's a whole bunch. E6000 is another one I have somewhere. So you can pick your favorite. Mine is this one. So I would like to see this, a little tube or something that just sticks along with the side one of these hoops that we can slide this through, so we wouldn't have to glue it. Because when you do glue it, if you do decide to change out the frame, you've got more to deconstruct. But I will say that swapping out all the components from one frame to another only takes about 10 minutes. So it's hard to complain about a 10-minute swap. It's kind of like a NASCAR tire change or something. Let's take a closer look at the motors. So in this case, I am using pictures just because it's very hard to hold so still that you can get a good look. You do notice that we have C-clips on the top and the bottom, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I haven't noticed that before with other motors, that the C-clips are on the top and the bottom. And so that has the benefit of holding that stem in place when we're putting our props on, or if we're taking crashes. Hopefully that helps sure them up. I didn't have any problems with maybe hitting the motor stems and bending them of any sort. Of course, props are down inside the hoops for the most part. Only the top little like 10% stick out. So the chances of hitting the props are relatively slim. Of course, when I would break the hoops, I would hit the props quite a bit, but no extra vibes, no twitches, really nothing that caused me anything of concern. Also, I had spoken about this previously. They're gluing the heat shrink that goes around their wires to the motor base. Now, I haven't noted that either in other of these little tiny micro motors. So that may help us keep these wires attached. If you're flying outside and you know you fly by a bush or something, or these wires get tangled up in something in your house, and you try to take off and you snag them and maybe pull them on it harder, maybe that glue around that heat shrink that is around the wires will help maintain the integrity of those wires. You also get to take a look at the air gap and the magnet sizes in those pictures that I'm showing you. The next thing we have to take a look is the Betaflight configuration, and I'm just going to let these pictures roll on screen as we just kind of talk about them a little bit. I did not PID tune this. This came from the factory just the way it was. And after we get done looking at these pictures, we're going to go ahead and go outside. Unfortunately, the flight I have isn't a full flight outside. I do land kind of early. I did this twice before on a much nicer day with less wind. I have lost some footage somewhere, because I lost some footage out of my last two videos. So I don't know what I've done. I spent the morning kind of lurking around trying to find that footage. So I had to go back out today, and unfortunately we have on and off rains and fairly high winds. So that flight that you're looking at isn't very good in my opinion, but it does give you a sample. I was surprised at how well it flew considering the amount of wind that I had. You could tell that I kind of cruise around. I'm kind of waiting for a lower gap in the wind. And what I'm doing outside is mainly testing that what we're calling yaw washout, or the community is calling yaw washout, to where you do a dive and then all of a sudden the machine pitches up and then it kind of yaws around. It can yaw either way, but I think I've seen primarily to the left. And this one didn't do it. You know, it's there on screen. There's a bailout in there, but that's me not wanting to get stuck in a tree, not the machine just doing something on its own. During each and every one of these dives, I felt as though I was in control as much as can be expected with the amount of wind that was out there. And that's very curious, because we've seen this yaw washout in other 2S whoops, so I'm wondering if it's has something to do with the aerodynamics of the hoops on these are different in some way, that it doesn't have that characteristic, or I haven't done enough dives to find the one that causes it to happen. That's possible. But you see what I tried to do, and it didn't happen. And so I have to assume from that experience and my previous two flights, which you can't see because I've lost that footage, that this one might not suffer from yaw washout, or they've done enough on the PID tuning, or they've done enough, maybe even upgrading the ESCs to the BB2, that they can respond quickly enough to keep the yaw washout from happening. Maybe that's what's going on. I'm speculating, I don't know. But it is a positive that we don't see that with this vehicle. Now, before I received the unit and I had some contact with Jason from Happy Model, I did post a question in the 2S Power Whoop group asking what other people were looking for, and I did pass that stuff along to them. And they're looking at that. I don't know how seriously. You know, I'm not part of their company. I receive no money from them. I just happened to be fortunate enough to draw their attention, and they wanted me to do a review. Whether they take those things into consideration and we see a future iteration, I was encouraging a pro version with a Cadix camera and possibly possibly a VTX that we could change milliwatts, but still small and light. I encouraged him to keep this thing as light as possible. It is a Whoop. If I didn't mention it already, I will also have the Betaflight dump files linked down below. So if you, for some reason, do some tinkering, maybe you flash and you need to come back, you know, that file's there for you if you need to get you back to what you saw in this video. Hopefully we've covered everything. This model checks a lot of boxes. Hopefully I've given you the information that you need to make a decision on whether it's for you or not. If you're new to the hobby, again, I don't let the flight video discourage you because it's fast and because we have a big house. Yeah, you can fly in a big space and fly fast if you want to, or you can keep flying and achieve that if that's something in your goals. But I don't want it to discourage anybody, and that's something that I oftentimes worry about, is that someone sees a flight video, because I have been flying a couple years, and many of you tell me how impressed you are, so I have to assume I'm doing fairly well. But I don't want it to put off anybody new. This stuff is too much fun to look at something and think that's way too intimidating. It's not. There's a lot of us out there that can help you, give you tips. I encourage you to spend a lot of time doing research. My first year and a half, I spent a lot of time just searching for stuff and looking at stuff on YouTube and asking myself questions and having my own doubt. So, you know, if you want to get in this hobby and you're not yet, do I think this would be a pretty good model to get into? Sure. I think it has a lot of versatility. I do think it has the one drawback that you can break this frame. It's not a super durable frame. I think if you're flying more modestly, it probably won't break. And even if it does break, you can use that welder that I had out to repair it. And it works quite well. As I said, I hope I've given you the information that you've needed. If I didn't, ask a question in the section down below. If you're looking for my opinion on this, it's really hard for me to make a justification of going for anything else. You know, the basic version of this is only $95. It flies really well. It's lightweight, which is a good thing, especially for indoor maneuverability. It's got an adjustable camera. No, the camera's not great, but we see that all the time. It's not terrible. I've seen worse cameras. You might be able to, if you're a modder, again, go in there and make some changes to a camera of your choice, like the Betaflight 1200 TV line or the Caddx Firefly or the Caddx EOS 2. You may be able to go in there and make those modifications. That's really up to you. But it flies really well. I really enjoyed this one. And as of right now, if you're asking me if of all the ones that we buy right now, if it's coming out of my pocket, I do buy this one. I don't think I could take this any further, but again, if I left anything out, please ask that in the section down below. I'll do my very best to answer your questions. Of course, I've got links to the product. Thank you, Happy Model, for sending this along. We've got the pictures that I took, also the pictures of the Betaflight setup. I'll put all those into one album and I'll link them down below so you can reference them later. I'm pretty certain this is probably going to be the first video of this out, so I want to make sure I have as much information available to people, because I know that this will become available shortly from Banggood. I don't think you can buy directly from Happy Model, but if you can, I'll put a product page and a link to their page as well. But I think this is kind of an exclusive Banggood model. But with that, I do think Good Venture Drones is going to try to get some so they can sell them stateside. If you're not in the States and Banggood isn't your favorite and you want one of these, I really don't know what to tell you. I'm not all that well versed with the quad shops or drone shops abroad. So Google is your friend. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.